trying to be weird. I'm trying to look like, I was going to say something like, is this live or is it Memorex? I was going to go, it's Memorex. No, it's not. It's live.
All who are viewing or listening to this right now are joining us with Upmarket Magazine on this intuitive public TV. I am so pleased to be here with Ryan Erickson. We are exploring some really important topics this morning with a brief introduction to someone we think that everyone should know. And we're going to just sort of chill out and bring in what flows in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's lovely to be here with you this morning, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us for this.
You're quite welcome. I'm pleased as punch to be here. I'm purposefully pleased to be here. So yeah, been far too long since we have danced together in this sacred space of human interaction.
More coming, more of that for absolute sure. So we've been talking about a person who I was only really introduced to fairly recently, who is a very important influence on the work you do. And as I learned more about her, she is key to the work I do. And her name is Mary Parker Follett. And I wonder if you'd say a little bit of how you first encountered her work.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for inviting me here and allowing me the space to riff on Magical Mary. She is the prophet of management, I think what she's been called. So Mary Parker Follett was a woman who is in the early 20th century, around the time, a management philosopher. Okay, so she's in the management domain. She was a social worker initially. She had interest in social organizing and kind of political organizing, I think, and that eventually she came to know of how her social organizing applied to areas beyond social organizing. Now, so you asked me a question, I totally went into something else, but how did I uncover this magical person named Mary Parker Follett? Okay, so I'm interested in a set of management principles that are called the Beta Codex, which are specifically related to the themes of decentralization, democratization, and federalization of organizations. So a complete, not even a flip, but just kind of a reimagining of the alpha world of triangles and pyramids, where you got somebody at the top and a bunch of people, peons at the bottom, and a group of clueless managers in the middle, to a more beta, or we call it beta, spherical, more collaborative, networked organization. So the Beta Codex is about moving from that world of the triangle to the world of the circle, or the pyramid to the sphere, however you want to talk about that organizational transformation. Yeah. And that set of principles, the Beta Codex principles, to do democratization, decentralization, and federalization, is based on the theories of several management thinkers. And core among those management thinkers were the folks that you might imagine and think about, guys named like W. Edwards Deming, Peter Drucker, and Peter Senge. I could name a whole bunch of folks. Not a whole lot of lovely ladies in that particular cadre of thinkers, save for one. And I think the most important one of the management thinkers of the early 20th century was Mary Parker Follett. And there were three main ideas that inform the Beta Codex and inform Mary Parker Follett's work, that are in stark contrast to what we know as management today. Frederick Taylor, if you've heard of Taylorist management and all this kind of stuff, that the industrial age factory work kind of division of labor, and treating people like machines, like that wonderful thing that happens here now. And Mary Parker Follett was kind of a colleague in that same era of time, but again, she came more from the humanistic side of management, because she was in social work about bringing small groups together, and one of the key pieces of that was different, of how she proposed to organize people, was this idea of integration. And I think that the title, integrated leadership, what are we talking about here? And integration, what she's talking about, how is that different? Is when with a group of people in conflict, right? So you have people confronting one another. There's often an assumption that there's either compromise or domination, right? Someone wins or loses, or there's a meeting in the middle, like a halfway point.
Yeah.
And the whole win lose, or 1 + 1 = 1.5 thing, right? And yeah, and this is Mary Parker Follett's view of how problems are better solved and move forward, is this idea of integration, that your passion, your idea, my passion, idea, while there's a confrontation and there can be a difference, that it seems so simple. It's so much better for you and I to integrate and have conversation and dialogue that is deep and rich and powerful, and that honesty and dialogue will create better outcomes. And that philosophy informed so much of our work. And that's one of a few, and that idea of this integration, in when you're confronting, you integrate instead of going to conflict. That's the integrated leadership. So
I want to also mention that the two conversations that I had recently with Johanna Otigum on this same platform for Upmarket magazine leads beautifully into this subject. We talked about the origins of Upmarket magazine, and then we talked about these two words, premium and deluxe, and what they mean, what people think they mean, how they've been used, how they've often been misleading, and the key of relational integrity in those words really being what they are supposed to be, what they're purported to be. How are we in relationship with one another? Are we really listening to one another? You mentioned the triangle versus the circle. All of the things that you're talking about, and all of the references that I've found about Mary Parker Follett's work, and a lot of what I've gotten to explore in Beta Codex, it traces right back to this. How are we people together? How are we living beings together?
mm-hmm.
And what does that mean for an organization, for a business, for a community, for any initiative, for our ability to achieve the successes we are leaning in for? It's absolutely essential.
Oh, and the leaning in. This leads me to the next piece of that. And you're talking about the interrelationship too. And this is a recent discovery for me, an opening of my eyes about Follett's work too, is that this idea of, so there's integration, right? You and I we are each individuals, and that we're integrating, we're not conflicting, that we're going somewhere else. Also, a fundamental principle is this idea of circular response. Mm-hmm. And to me, I was thinking, like you think in behaviorism or behavioral psychology, stimulus and response. So there's the bell, there's the salivation. The whole Pavlovian thing. And we take that, and I also said, well, this idea of I think Viktor Frankl, between stimulus and response, there is a choice, and it is in that choice, it's in that space between stimulus and response, it makes all the difference. Yeah. Which just sounds so wonderful and so true, and I morph that into my own idea of, the space between stimulus and response, it does make all the difference. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to choose between fear and love. Wow, oh, that sounds great too. And then I go and read another bit. I read Creative Experience, which is the second of 3 books Mary Parker Follett wrote. Did not write much, just these books. So Creative Experience brings this idea of circular response, it was circular response. And that this idea of stimulus and response, that I'm not just responding to you, that I am responding to the us at the same time. So that you and I are responding, I'm responding to what is between us, and I am responding to what is around us. And you are doing the same thing. So we are in this circular response. So what, I don't know. I'm trying to bring that into invitation, but this is the idea that it's not fixed. It's not like you're fixed, I'm fixed, you act upon me, and then I respond. No. Mary Parker Follett's insight, and this was how when she observed the social groups, small social groups, it was about much more than that. Realizing that the moment that we have is living. It is alive. This time that we have is alive. And the sun is shining this way here in Cincinnati and over there, and I hear the dishwasher going, and I'm responding to that. I'm responding to my cat here, and I'm looking at you, nodding and smiling, and you're hearing me do this. And that, what is that? Is that just a unified stimulus? No, that's this play, that's this life and this living, and that's so much richer.
It's
so much more human.
It's so much more whole. We can be our whole selves, and every one of us, there's so many touch points in this that connect with other work. We have found it to be absolutely crucial to have in mind, to be present within our bodies, in order to work together effectively, in order to achieve goals. The individual self is only arbitrarily defined. The individual can be said to be, just this, nothing else, right? But where exactly does one part leave off and the other parts begin? Many cultures have conceived of the individual as the community. That the individual is the community, and the community is the individual in a really fundamental way, that you don't separate them. Cultures that conceive of humans as part of the land, as part of the earth as our mother who brings us into being so generously, and that's been wiped out by, let's say, generations of management styles that have included that, right?
Yeah, and the evolution of human technology through time, right? And the acknowledgement of changing roles in societies and cultures of peoples like us in places like those, and come together doing things like this to create stuff like that, so we can and all the way back to the plow and farming sheep and the roles of men and women and the division of roles like that, and the gradual acceptance. And it's taken so long, and again, and many would argue is still, we are far away from this idea of the masculine competitive world of whatever. I mean, we could trigger all the words of paternalism and colonization, all that kind of stuff, but beneath that, what has now happened, and what I think is happening is this, as we uncover maybe the first feminist management philosopher, recover her, and that that collaboration is so much more important now as complexity has blossomed and has continued to blossom, and that the hey, we need mom too. and as and again, not this in parental thing too. It's like that, don't in a workplace, as we work together, don't treat me as if you have power over me. This is the other thing about Mary Parker Follett, that let us be together as if we have power with, that we are sharing, we are collaborating, we are being together. We are having a circular response and integrating our differences in order so that we might share power and achieve and progress our common goals that we choose together. And that's the more the integration of the masculine and the feminine, and kind of transcending that and transforming that. I think that's the exciting part for me, and that's kind of what drives me into the Beta Codex is kind of like just the nibble of that into this real world that I think Pollett's work invites us to explore.
And I really appreciate the ways that people can start to learn more about Beta Codex through exploring these subjects, because a lot of people don't necessarily know what, programmer language, right? Not everybody has been in those environments, and it connects profoundly to work that we've been doing in the intuitive upmarket for many years now, where we talk quite a bit about power flow, the way that power can flow between us and with us, and as a collective relational experience. And we talk quite a bit also about the word technology, because we've all been accustomed to hearing the word technology in terms of being introduced in a particular context, typically a colonial imperialist context, of conquering, of predatory encroachment, and technology itself. We often also think of emergent human technology or living technology, where long before those particular systems came in, living beings were discovering through a form of the scientific method, what is it that works for us? And relational integrity is so key to that pre-conqueror time, to when living beings are evolving together and discovering together what allows us to survive and thrive. And relationship is absolutely mandatory as part of that equation, as part of that algorithm. And so the word technology is also tricky sometimes.
And I think that's also part of what, again, when the Beta Codex and also in the work of collaborative change and in socio-technical systems, and many of there's such a body of knowledge around the social type of work. And again, in the Beta Codex world, we have social technologies. Also in some of the other world that we open space technology, as some folks might know, large group format, sit in a circle, put a bulletin board, open a marketplace, get to work. That's open space technology in a moment, but that's a social technology. That's a framework, a very light framework of people getting together. World Cafe is one, art of hosting, and again, open space beta. We talk about bringing the principles of the Beta Codex. The Beta Codex principles are a social technology. And what does that mean? It is not a mechanical technology. Right. It is technology that is built, right? But it is built out of human relationships.
Right.
And a way of art, the art and craft of building relationships and iterating on ways of being together. And I think as the industrialized technologies have, that rose through Taylor, and then those were things of their time. Taylor was a man of his time. It wasn't a demon. Taylor and Max Weber and those management theorists, they were trying to make sense of the world that was emerging. And it just happens to be that those technologies of power over and hierarchy and functional division and all those things, those management technologies, or management as a social technology in general, it's obsolete technology that is still being used to attempt to make sense of the world and deliver value, and at the cost of human thriving. So I think the social technologies that we're talking about in the Beta Codex and in many other ways are really much more fit for humanity and human thriving than these power over structures and the power with structures that we're talking about in integrated leadership.
I'd love, before we wrap up, I would love if we could very briefly touch on the name of Beta Codex, because when I learned more about it, it seemed to really focus on process. There seems to be a powerful element of we're developing this together, we're evolving this together. And I wonder if you want to speak on that just briefly so that we can expand it in future broadcasts.
Well, I think even just the word, it's kind of it's an obscure word. It's a made up word that you're bringing two things together, that it's like chocolate and peanut butter, right? Two things together that you don't think might go together. I'll start with the back end, because I think that's the one that throws off a lot of people. This codex. What is a codex? What are you talking about? And if those of you who played Dungeons and Dragons back in the day, I forget what the codex is called. But yeah, okay, so we did. So we're telling ourselves our vintage and our geekdom from the past. There's this codex, this book of magic, book of spells. There's this book of, and I would say a book of rules, right? So in the world of Taylor in the industrial age and power over, that was a codex. That's a game that's played. Those are rules of the game, and that's just the language of that system. That's a codex, and it is the rule book essentially. And I think that's the alpha rule book. And then comes to alpha and beta, the progression in the Greek language, of course, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, sigma. And that has been co-opted by the software world. The beta codex didn't come from software. That concept kind of did, because you have alpha software that's really early, that barely works and mostly doesn't, and then beta software that is closer to production, right? So you have alpha version of software was awful, we kind of know, and then beta version, which is closer, and then you have production. And we haven't reached production yet, of course, in this world, but it's the language of a new language, a new dictionary, a new encyclopedia of concepts, and a new method and meshing of theories that we're talking about, a codex. And so that's how do you learn language? You have to learn the vocabulary. You learn how the concepts relate. And again, this is from alpha to beta, you could say industrial to knowledge age, whatever it is. Back then was alpha, barely worked, doesn't work anymore. What is called upon to us in the world of work and management as it is today is to go forward and to progress, iterate, and into a future that is uncertain but is beautiful for us to travel into together.
I'm really excited to keep talking about this. And I'm very grateful that you are here with us today. I'm very grateful to the work of Mary Parker Follett, who we're going to talk about a lot more. I want to encourage everyone to find Rijon on Substack, and the Beta Codex link that we've been sharing. We'll make sure that that's on our next post too. I'm really looking forward to our next steps. So we're going to be back here broadcasting Upmarket Magazine on this Intuitive Public TV in the near future. I hope everyone will hit subscribe buttons and follow us on social media and come and spend time with us in these conversations because they're so important. Thank you so much, Ryan.
You're quite welcome. Like and subscribe, folks. Like and subscribe. Like and comment and subscribe for you on LinkedIn.
We're going to keep going. Have a wonderful morning, everyone. We'll see you soon.